All right, so let's go ahead and go over 13 through 25. And we'll be doing the 2014 Algebra 2 SOL. Okay, this one is number 13. This one gives us a fraction on top of a fraction. So let's write this down first. I've got n minus 15 over 9n. N minus 15 over 9n. So that's going to be the numerator. In the denominator, I have 15 minus n over 3n to the fifth power. So 15 minus n goes on top. On the bottom, we're going to have 3n to the fifth power. So this is what's called a complex fraction. And we call it a complex fraction because we have a fraction on top of a fraction. In other words, the numerator is a fraction, but the denominator is also a fraction. So what do we do when we divide fractions? Well, if we have a over b divided by c over d, what we do with that is we keep the first fraction the same. So the top fraction is going to be the same. The bottom fraction is the one that we flip. So I used to have c over d. Now I've got d over c. So we're going to flip the second fraction. So this first one on top is going to stay the same. It's still going to be n minus 15 over 9n. I'm going to change it to multiplication, so I'm going to put a dot in the middle. And then the fraction on the bottom is the one that I'm going to flip. I'm going to write 3n to the fifth power on top. And then in the bottom, I'm going to have 15 minus n. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if there are any factors that I can cancel out on the top and the bottom. Now, one thing that I can change is on the bottom of the second fraction, you'll see that I have 15 minus n. If I take a negative 1 out, then that's going to change the order of the subtraction. Instead of having 15 minus n, I'm going to have n minus 15. So now what I can do is I can cancel out the n minus 15. So let me change to red, and I'm going to cross this out, and I'm going to cross this out. Now, are there any other factors that I can cancel out? I have an n on the bottom. If I get rid of this n, then I need to get rid of one of the n's on top. So instead of having 5 n's on top, I'm going to have 4 of them because I just canceled out one of them. So now I only have 3n to the fourth power on top, and I have a negative 1 times 9 on the bottom. So what I can do now is, since I have a 9 and a 3, if I cancel out the 3 on top, then I can cancel out a 3 on the bottom. So 9 divided by 3 is just going to give me 3. So what do I have left on top? I only have n to the 4th power. That's going to be my numerator. What do I have left in the denominator? Just a negative 1 times 3. And that's going to give me negative 3. And since I can't do anything more to it, I'm going to draw a box around it because this is going to be my final answer. So n to the 4th power over negative 3. And this was number 13.
That's not even an answer choice on the question.
It's not. So n to the 4th power.
There's an n to the 4th power and a positive 3, but there's no negative 3.
Okay, so see this negative on top right here? That would be the answer. Notice how you have a negative n to the 4th power over 3. So what you could do is you could rewrite this, but have the negative on top instead of on the bottom. And that would be the same answer. So I could write it like this too. So that would be A. All right, let's try 14. This one gives me a radical equation. It has a square root of 8x minus 1 plus 4 equals 8. And that plus 4 is going to be on the outside of the radical. So to solve this equation, the first thing I need to do is get rid of this plus 4. And I can do that by subtracting 4 from both sides. If I do that, the plus 4 and the minus 4 will cancel out, giving me 0. And then I'm left with square root of 8x minus 1 is equal to 8 minus 4, and that's going to be 4. All right, so now I need to get rid of the square root symbol, and then I can do stuff on the inside of the radical. So to get rid of the square root symbol, I need to square both sides. So I need to square the left side, but also I need to square the right side. So what that does is the exponent of 2 up here and the square root symbol are going to cancel each other out, leaving me only with what I have on the inside, 8x minus 1. Over here, 4 squared is going to give me 16. That's 4 times 4. So now to get the x by itself, I need to do 2 things. I need to get rid of the minus 1 and the 8 right here. To get rid of the minus 1, I can add 1 to both sides. When I do that, the negative 1 and the positive 1 are going to cancel out, leaving me with 8x. Over here, 16 plus 1 is going to give me 17. And now I can divide both sides by 8 to get rid of the 8's. And I have to divide this side by 8 too. So now I'm only left with x. X equals 17 divided by 8, whatever that is. I don't know what decimal that is, but I don't think the answer asks for a decimal. It gives you fractions. So that's going to be C, 17 over 8. And whenever you get your answer, you can write it in a solution set with just the answer inside. So 17 over 8, and then I close up the solution set. All right, let's try number 15. So 15 gives us which graph best represents the solution for y is greater than or equal to the absolute value of 2x plus 1 minus 3 on the outside. So these vertical lines mean absolute value. Absolute value. So one of the things you can do to solve this is to graph it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Desmos and I'm going to graph this. So first I need the y. And I also need a greater than or equal to symbol. That's going to be on the keypad down here. Next, I need absolute value symbols. I can find those over here on the left side. And then on the inside, I'm going to have 2x plus 1. So 2x plus 1. And then on the outside, I'm going to have minus 3. And this is what I get. So there are a couple things about this that I'm going to mention. When you graph any absolute value equation, you're going to have a V shape. That's the shape of the absolute value. And if you look right here, the vertex at the bottom is going to be -1/2, -3. So that should help you pick out the graph. Also, notice that it's shaded upwards. So I'm going to shade in blue everything that's above the V shape, not below the V shape. And the reason why I'm shading up is because I have a greater than symbol right here. Also, since it's greater than or equal to, I'm going to have a solid graph. So these are going to be solid lines instead of dotted lines. So looking at my answer choices, only 2 of these are going to be shaded upwards, A and C. And the one that best looks like that graph is going to be A. So I'm going to choose A. So there's not a lot of work that you can write for this one. Let's look at 16. 16 says, what is the solution set to x squared is equal to 16 minus 4x? So x squared is going to be equal to 16 minus 4x. There are a couple ways that you can do this. The first way you can do it is by graphing. You can graph the left side of the equation and the right side of the equation. So I'm going to go back to Desmos and I'm going to graph the left side, which is x squared. I could do x squared. And then down here, I could do 16 minus 4x. That would be the right side. 16 minus 4x. And then I get two graphs on my screen. And where do the graphs cross each other? They cross once down here, 2.472. So x is going to equal 2.472. But also, where else do they cross? They're going to cross up here probably, right? So if I scroll over here enough and I click on the point, I get negative 6.472. So those are the two x values where they cross at. So now, looking at my answer choices, I need to choose the right decimals. They don't give me decimals, so I just have to take my best guess. I know the answer is not going to be the plus or minus 4. And I know that my answers aren't going to be imaginary numbers. So I can't choose the one in the middle or the one at the end. So it's either going to be the second choice or the fourth choice. So what is 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 5? I can actually calculate that on my calculator. 2 plus 2 square root of 5. Let's see what that is. 2 plus 2 square root of 5. That would be 6.472. That would seem to match up. I'm also going to try 2 minus 2 square root of 5 and see what I get there. And that would be negative 2.472. So that seems to match up with what I have right here. Does it? Let me check. No, it doesn't. So what was my other answer choice? Negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 5. Let's try the fourth choice. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a negative sign out in front of the 2. And that's probably going to change my answers. Yep. So now I get the positive 2.472. That's going to be this. And I'm going to get the negative 6.472. So it's going to be negative 2 plus or minus 2 square root of 5. And that was this fourth choice right here. Let's call it D. Now, another way you can do this is you can do x squared is equal to 16 minus 4x, and I can get everything on one side. So I could subtract 16 from both sides, and I can add 4x to both sides. And if I do that, I'll get the same answer. So everything cancels out on this side, leaving me with 0. Everything shows up on this side though. So I'm going to have x squared plus 4x minus 16. And then from here, I can do the quadratic formula. X equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac, where everything is divided by 2 times a. And I can get all of my coefficients from the left side. So my a would be 1, my b would be 4, and my c would be negative 16. So you could do it that way too and get the same answer. It would just take a little bit more work. Okay, so moving on to 17, we get a cube root equation. So this cube root is going to be cube root of 1/4 x plus 3. One-fourth x plus 3. What else did they have? Equal to 2. So I'm going to set the whole thing equal to 2. So how could I solve this? I could get rid of the cube root somehow. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to cube both sides. So that way, whatever I have inside the radical is just going to come out the way it is. So 1/4 x plus 3. And then over on this side, I have 2 to the 3rd power. That would be 8. Because that's 2 times 2 times 2. So now that I've gotten rid of the radical, I can do stuff to the inside of it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract 3 from both sides. That way, that'll get rid of the plus 3. Let's see what that does. Now I'm left with 1/4 x is equal to 8 minus 3. That's going to be 5. And now to get rid of the 1/4, I can divide both sides by 1/4, or I could multiply both sides by 4, which is what I'm going to do. Either way, you'll get the same answer, 20. So x is equal to 5 times 4. That's going to be 20. So inside my solution set, I'm just going to have a positive 20. That would be C. So that's how you solve a cube root equation. Let's look at 18 now. What is the solution to absolute value of x plus 4 is less than 2? So I've got absolute value of x plus 4 is less than 2. So to do this, you need to know what happens to absolute value inequalities. Basically, what happens is you can take whatever's on the inside out. So I'm going to take out the x plus 4, just like it is. And I'm going to keep everything the same for this one. So I'm going to have a less than 2. But also, you're going to have another solution where everything stays the same on the left side. So I'm still going to have the x plus 4. But then everything is going to flip after that. The less than sign is going to become a greater than. And the positive 2 is going to become a negative 2. So let's solve both of these and see if we can figure out what the answers are going to be. I can subtract 4 from both sides. And I get x is less than 2 minus 4. That's going to be negative 2. And I'm going to bring down the and. So not only does x have to be less than negative 2, it also has to satisfy this one as well. So we're going to subtract 4 from both sides here to get x by itself. When I do that, the 4's will cancel out, leaving me with x is greater than negative 2 minus 4, which is negative 6. Let's see if we can graph this on a number line. So I have negative 2 and I have negative 6. The smallest of those is going to be negative 6. So that's going to go over here. The negative 2 is a larger number than negative 6, so that can go right here. And then between those, I'm going to have negative 4, let's say. Okay, so because x is less than negative 2, I'm going to have an open circle on the negative 2. And since x is greater than negative 6, I'm going to have an open circle on the negative 6. I'm going to shade left from the negative 2. And I'm going to stop at the negative 6. And from the negative 6, I'm going to shade to the right, like that. And I'm going to stop at the negative 2. So we're really shading between negative 6 and negative 2. And whatever is inside this shaded region is going to be my answer. It's a double shaded region. So I'm going to change my color to red, and I'm going to shade in between the negative 6 and the negative 2. So basically this red region right here contains all your answers. Let's see, that's going to be B. X is between negative 6 and negative 2. So not only does x have to be less than negative 2, but it also has to be greater than negative 6. So that's how I got that. Okay, let's look at the next one. So 19 says the graph of g of x is shown, and it asks which appears to be a solution of g of x equals 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at where the graph crosses the x-axis. Where does this graph cross the x-axis? Well, it crosses at positive 1 over here. That is not one of my choices, so I can't choose that. The other place where it crosses the x-axis is the -3. And that does appear as a choice. So the answer is going to be A. So how do I know that it crosses the x-axis there? Well, the whole polynomial g of x is going to be equal to 0. So the y value has to be 0. That means you're only looking at the x-axis here. So the answer is going to be A. X equals -3. Okay, let's look at 20. So 20 says, given this system of equations right here, what are the x values for the solution? So there are two ways that I can do this. I can graph it and see where the lines cross each other. That would be the easiest way to do it. Or I could get y by itself on both sides and then do some algebra with it. I'll show you how to do it both ways. So first, let's graph this and see what we get. I'm going to go to Desmos and I'm going to type in exactly what I see. X plus y plus 10 equals 0. So x plus y plus 10 equals 0. And I'm probably going to have to zoom out to see it. There we go. I get a straight line. That's what the first equation gives me. The second equation says what? X squared plus y minus 2 equals 0. X squared plus y minus 2 equals 0. And I get this green U shape. That would be a quadratic function. So where do they cross at? They cross in two places. Here, -3, -7. -3 is my x value. And +4, -14. But +4 is going to be my x value. So -3 and 4. X equals -3 and +4. So that's going to be B. That's one way you can do it. You can also do it by algebra. I'll show you a quick way of how I do it. The first thing that I do is I get y by itself. So x plus y minus 10 equals 0. I mean plus 10, right? So this is the first equation that they give me. To get y by itself, I would have to subtract the x and the 10, and I get y equals -x minus 10. That's the line in blue that I graph. And then the next equation tells me that x squared plus y minus 2 equals 0. So to get y by itself, I would have to add 2 and subtract x squared. So I get y equals negative x squared plus 2. So looking at this, this is going to be the line that I graphed in blue. And this right here, this is going to be the upside down U shape that we graphed in green, right? And now, since they're both equal to y, I can set them equal to each other. So negative x squared plus 2, that's my bottom equation, is equal to negative x minus 10. That's my top equation. And then I would have to get everything onto either the left side or the right side. I'm going to get everything to the right side because this x squared will turn positive on this side. So I can add x squared, subtract 2, these cancel, and I have x squared minus x minus 12. And then from there, if I was to factor this, I would get x plus 3, x minus 4. And if I set them both equal to 0, that's how I would get negative 3 from this factor. And then I could get positive 4 from this factor right here. But I would have to set both of them equal to 0. I would have to solve this, and I would have to solve this to get negative 3 and positive 4. Then you can back substitute to get your y values. Okay, let's look at 21. This is another radical equation. This one is a fourth root. You can tell because the index is 4 on this radical symbol. So the fourth root of w minus 4, the fourth root of w minus 4 and plus 11 is equal to 14. So the first thing that I'm going to do with this is subtract 11 from both sides. I wouldn't start off by getting rid of the radical first because this plus 11 is in the way. And if I can get rid of that first, then the radical symbol would just be by itself on this side. 14 minus 11 is 3. And now what I can do is I can take both sides to the fourth power. And it's 4 because I need to match the index right here. But just take both sides to the fourth power and you should be fine. So this is going to come down, whatever's on the inside, w minus 4, 3 to the fourth power, that's going to be 3, 3, 3, 3. This gives me 9, this gives me 9, and this gives me 81. So that's 3 to the fourth power. That's 81. And now the last thing that I need to do to get w by itself is to add 4 to both sides. And you should get 85 for your answer. So inside my solution set, I'm going to have 85 right here. But the trick is to get rid of the 11 first. That way, when you take both sides to the fourth power, you won't have to take 11 to the fourth power. It'll already be gone. That is D. Okay, let's look at 22. 22 is a graphing question. It says we have a system of two equations. Identify only the apparent solutions. So we're looking at where they're going to cross each other. Where do they cross? At 2 points, right? Down here and up here. So let's get the positive solution first. Up here, my x value is 2. My y value is 5. So that's going to be 2 comma 5. That would be my first ordered pair where they cross. My second ordered pair is going to be down here. The x value is -2. The y value is -3. So -2, -3. Those are going to be my answers. And since they don't give me equations of this graph, I can't really do any algebra to it. You just got to look at it. All right, let's look at the next one. So this one gives me an equation where we have two fractions. So let's write them down first. I've got 4n minus 37 over 3. And we're going to set that equal to what? 10 over n. And it says n cannot be equal to 0. That's obvious because if it was 0, then you would be dividing by 0 down here. And we can't have that. So there are a couple ways that we can solve this. We can do cross products, which is probably what I'm going to do. What you could also do is you could find the lowest common denominator between the 3 and the n. But let's do cross products. I'm going to change to blue. And what we're going to do is we're going to draw a diagonal line from the top left to the bottom right. And we're going to multiply these together. We're going to multiply it by n. And then on the other side, we're going to have these products right here. 3 times 10. That's going to give you 30. But starting on the left side, if I multiply both by n, I'm going to get 4n squared minus 37n. That's using distributive property. And over here, I'm going to have 30. So now what I can do is I can get everything to the left side and then see if I can solve this equation. We're going to subtract 30 from both sides. That way, everything can be on the left side. Okay. So at this point, I can factor the left side. There's nothing I can take out from all 3 terms, but I can do the rainbow method, and I'll show you how to do that over here. So I've got 4n squared minus 37n minus 30. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the rainbow from the first number to the last number, and we're going to multiply them together. So 4 times -30 is going to give you -120. So we're multiplying to -120. What are we adding to? We're adding to the middle number, right? -37. So I'm going to put the -37 under the a. because we're adding to that. So what two numbers can multiply to negative 120 but add up to negative 37? Let's try negative 40 and a 3. That seems to work because they multiply to negative 120 and they're going to add up to negative 37. So now I've got my two numbers. I'm going to put variables on them so I don't get them confused with anything else. So I'm going to put n's on them. And now I can bring down my last two terms, that 4n squared and that negative 30. And we're going to group them together. So what can I take out of the first group? 4n. I'm left with n minus 10. What can I take out from the second group? Just a 3. I'm left with n minus 10. That's a good sign because these match up. So the outside parts are going to be 4n and 3. And then my inside part is going to be n minus 10. And if I set them both equal to 0, I'm going to get 10 right here and negative 3 over 4. Let's see if that actually shows up. 10 and negative 3 over 4. That shows up with D. It wouldn't be A because our 10 is positive, right? So that would not work. D, negative 3 over 4. Now, there is another way you can do this. You can actually graph the left side and the right side, and it'll show up on Desmos. Let's do 24 now. So last two questions. So this one is an absolute value equation. Let's try this one. Absolute value of 2x minus 7. Close that up. So this is all absolute value. And then we're adding 1 and setting it equal to 9. So what could I do first to solve this? Eventually, I want to get x by itself, but to do that, I need to do a couple of things before that. First, I can get rid of this plus 1 by subtracting 1 from both sides. That'll get rid of the 1's. 9 minus 1 is 8. And then I'm only left with the absolute value symbol. So what I can do is I can break this up into two separate equations, and I'll show you how to do it. We're going to divide our paper into two. For the first solution, I can take everything out the same. So I get 2x minus 7 is equal to 8. Nothing changes really. The next thing that I can do is I can take this out, but I can change the sign on the 8. So instead of having a positive 8, I'm going to have a negative 8. So these are my two equations that I need to solve. And I'm using a positive 8 and a negative 8 because this absolute value symbol can turn a positive into a positive, but it could also turn a negative into a positive. So we need to have this negative 8. For the first one, I can add 7 to both sides and then divide by 2. That'll solve this. I get 15 is equal to 2x. And then I can divide both sides by 2. That'll get rid of the 2's over here. I get 15 divided by 2, which is going to be my answer. I'm going to leave it as a fraction for now. But of course, you can write it as a decimal if you want. Over here, I'm pretty much going to do the same thing, but I'm going to get a different answer because my 8 is negative. So I'm left with 2x is equal to negative 8 plus 7. That is negative 1. And now I can divide both sides by 2. And what do I get? Negative 1/2. So inside my solution setup here, I'm going to have 2 different answers. I can have 15 divided by 2 and negative 1 divided by 2. So let's see if they show up. 15 over 2 does not show up, but negative 1/2 does show up. So that's going to be C. Okay. The last one we're going to do today is 25. So what does 25 say? If x does not equal 0, what is the solution? 1 minus x over x plus 2 equals 7 over x. Okay, let's write that down. 1 minus x over x plus 2 equals what? 7 over x? And this is only true if x does not equal 0, because if it did equal 0, you would be dividing by 0 here and here. There are 2 ways that you can solve this. You can graph it, which is what I'm going to do. Or you could find a least common denominator, the LCD, which is going to be x, by the way. So let's do it both ways. Let's find a least common denominator. Now, since I know that my least common denominator is going to be x, I really don't have to change this fraction or this one. Really, I just need to rewrite the 2 somehow. So let's do that. How can I rewrite 2 so it has a denominator of x? So it matches up with this fraction and this fraction. Let's talk about that. So in the middle, I'm going to have x in the denominator. If I'm multiplying the denominator by x, I need to multiply the numerator by x. So 2 times x is going to give me 2x. And that's how I rewrite it. So now the x's can cancel out, just leaving me with a whole number 2. So now I've got all the fractions having a common denominator of x. Now what I can do is I can just set the numerators equal to each other. That's going to be 1 minus x plus 2x is equal to 7. And I can go from there. Okay, so what are my like terms? Negative x and 2x. I can add those together to get 1x. And I kind of don't need the 1, so I'm going to erase that. So I get 1 plus x equals 7. Subtract 1 from both sides. And I'm running out of room. But you can tell that 7 minus 1 is going to give me 6. So I get x equals 6. So that's the first way I can do it. The next way that I can do it is by graphing. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to graph the left side of the equation and then the right side of the equation. So let's see what happens when we do that. I'm going to go to Desmos and I'm going to graph the left side. 1 minus x over x. And what I'm going to have to do is put this inside parentheses. Then I can divide by x like I want to. But then I have to add 2, right? And then the right side of the equation was 7 over x. 7 over x. So 7 divided by x. So now let's zoom out a little bit and let's see where they cross. So the purple graph is going to be the left side of my equation. That's this curve right here and here. And then the black graph is going to be the right side of my equation. So where do they cross? They definitely cross right here at 6. That explains why my answer is 6. But do they cross anywhere else? Let's zoom out to see. Nope. Only right here. So that's why my answer is only going to be 6. So x has to be equal to 6. That's what you would type there. Okay, that's going to be it. If you have any questions out there, you can put them in the chat box, but I am pretty much done for this week. Next week, we're going to finish up this SOL test, and we're going to do the rest of the questions 26 through 50. So I'll see you then.